Hi, this is Olaf, and welcome to episode 2 of my journey to the Ironman World Championships 2022 in Kona and St. George. All right, so first update in terms of where I'm at. So after easy week last week with 15 hours, I had a big week up to today of over 27 hours, actually the biggest week since the beginning of the year. I swam a total of 20k exactly to the meter finally. I did 490k on the bike and 67k on the run. So what I'm doing different this time in terms of preparation is definitely swimming a lot more. So big shout out to my swim coach Fred, who's helping me a lot. So I do typically 2 swim sessions a week with him of 5k. I rarely did that kind of swimming before. I typically do one other large swim of 4.5k and then sort of smaller swims, but I swim 5 or 6 times in the week, and I can definitely feel the difference. Number one in terms of speed, but otherwise, even at the end of the big sessions, whether it's after 4 or almost 5k, I'm still able to have relatively good swim form. And so I really hope that this is gonna translate in a good swim time in my next race. On the bike, we started to do longer bikes. So I did the 5-hour bike today. So this was the first time I think since the beginning of the year that I did such a long one. So we did one 5-hour bike, one 4-hour bike in the middle of the week, and then on Friday one 3-hour bike on the trainer, plus on Monday also one session on the trainer with some more intensity. On the run, we haven't really done that much volume yet. More easy and controlled stuff. We still have the one hill repeat session that I mentioned last time, 10 times 3 minutes. We have one track session. This time we shortened it a little bit for the race that's coming up. So we did 10 times 400, 10 times 300, and 10 times 200 with 30 seconds rest for the 400, 1 minute rest for the jog for the 300, and 2-minute rest jog for the 200s. So that's been going quite well. I completed 100% of my training, so can't really ask for more. The objective was also, not to be too tired at the end of this week, since my next race is coming up in just 7 days, and I think I completed that. So quite happy with this overall. In terms of my my top priorities from last week, so number one, not to get injured. I think I achieved that. Still have a few niggles here and there in terms of what was it this week. My knees still, I can feel them here and there from time to time. I also, in my left shin, I felt something, couldn't really locate clearly where that pain or where that uncomfortable feeling was coming from, which is always a little bit worrying. But so far, even during the long run, etc., it didn't bother me. Even after the track session, it was okay. So touch wood, it's gonna be fine going forward. And last top priority was do the easy stuff easy, which I also struggle with typically, but I did the long run, 1 hour 45 at 4:40 pace, which is definitely the easy pace for me, relatively flat. So I was happy with that. And on the bike also, the sessions that were supposed to be easy was very controlled. So in terms of the top priorities, worked out quite well. I also didn't fall off the bike. I had a little bit of a scare today. A car wanted to squeeze through and touched me with the side window on my butt on the bike. It was really just a little tap. So he was precise enough so that nothing worse happened. So So quite happy with that. The training is going well, and looking forward what's going to come next. Then we are now in race week. So next weekend is Ironman 70.3 Puerto Rico. So really exciting to see how that's gonna play out. As always, you never know how a race is gonna go. It's always a little bit stressful because even though 70.3 is just half the Ironman distance, it's actually quite easy to overpace yourself, whether it's on the 3 disciplines, and I had bad experiences in the past for sure. It's going to be hot and more humid apparently than in Martinique than here at the moment, so the pacing is really going to be absolute key. But I think if I focus on nutrition, if I keep controlled but really powerful on the swim, and don't overpace myself at the beginning of the bike and the run, I'm really looking forward to the results. We are not doing any big taper for this race, so it's more sort of a out of training session or out of training race, since St. George full Ironman World Champs is coming up quickly afterwards. So we will see how it goes, but the objective is definitely to hopefully to be close to sort of 28 or 29 minutes. Obviously the swim depends very much, sometimes the course is a bit longer, etc. Not to go out too crazy. I had experiences in the past where after 200 meters I could barely breathe, just really ease into it, but try to be part of the front guys. And then on the bike, sure, the 40 km/h, that's a 2-hour 15 bike. A couple of times I was able to go under it. It will be interesting to see with the new Canyon bike, with the aerodynamics, if I keep a good position, if I'm able to go under that. I definitely had my best runs after easing off a little bit in the final stages of the bike. Let's see. I don't know the course exactly. It's supposed to be flat, but I think there are some bridges at the beginning, etc. Depends obviously also how strong the wind is. But keeping it under control, focusing on the nutrition, not going crazy for the first 7 kilometers on the run. The run is not flat. They say actually it's hilly, so it's going it's slightly flat at the beginning, then it goes up and then down, and you have to do that, go through there 4 times, so you have 2 loops. So there as well, given that there is the hill you have to run through, making sure that the heart rate doesn't go completely out of whack in order to be able to finish strong, in order to not to overheat, in order to be able to recover quickly, and hopefully have a good result. So there are no pros, which means that hopefully there will be we'll have a good position overall in the race. But you never know who's going to show up. There are certainly going to be some young, very fast guys on the start line. We focus on my race. Hopefully, have a good result in my age group and overall. And quite excited, looking forward to it. All right, so last point is really about nutrition that I wanted to focus on. So there was somebody asked me about nutrition in the comments last time, and I definitely think it's a very important subject. So I broke it down into 3 parts because I think that there's nutrition in general, which is quite important. There's nutrition during training, which is important, and then there's nutrition during the race, which is probably the most important. But first of all, nutrition in general. So I'm not great, I would say, and I'm maybe not the best one to give perfect advice on this, because but I've definitely for the last year have been making efforts, and I lost a few kilos also because I made those efforts. So I definitely try to eat less meat, try to eat as much as I can fruits, try to add vegetables, salads on a regular basis. I do add some protein powder to some of the breakfast cereals that I eat. I try now to also take um, veggie milk, so almond milk, etc., instead of regular milk. But I do still eat yogurts. When I have a really big week, like a 1 kilo Nutella, I can finish that in 5 days. So I still eat a lot of sugar in general. But I think the most important is to try and keep the balance. It works quite well not to eat too much meat, but most important again is not to get injured, and is being able to complete 100% of the training. So recovery is super important. And so I'm not as crazy as before, so I don't eat as much as I can all the time and as much crap as I can all the time. I'm trying not to buy too much sugar, so that it's just not around, because if it's there I will definitely eat it. But other than that, I'm not crazy, so I still think I could lose a little bit more weight. But to be honest, it's more important. At the moment, I'm sort of at 67 kilos in the evening and 66 in the morning, or something like that. Sorry, 76 in the morning and 77 in the evening. And with that, I'm feeling pretty good. I can do all the training that I have to do without feeling exhausted, and so that's my top priority, while still eating as healthy as possible. So then comes nutrition during training. So here as well, I do some exercises when they're really easy and not too long, without taking in lots of carbs. But most of the training, I really try and take all the carbs that I need in order to feel well. I use caffeine quite a lot as well. Obviously the carbs, whether it's gels, etc., it's quite expensive. It comes to quite a lot. So the cheapest carbs are still Coke, and so sometimes even before training I will take a can of Coke, which gives me some sugar and some caffeine as well. So that is working well. You definitely have to train your gut in terms of being able to take in a lot of carbs also for the race. Training with lots of carbs typically has always worked for me well. Then in terms of race nutrition, so here you must have a nutrition plan. So I have an Excel spreadsheet where I look exactly, and what you have to look at, I believe, is number one, the sugar, the carbs, number two, the salt, and number three, the caffeine. So you have to control those three. How much do you take and when do you take it? For the typical rule is you need around 1 gram of carb per kilo of your weight per hour. So for me, I try to be between 80 and 100 grams, so even more than that. I really try to take in as much carbs as possible, but then also important is the salt, especially in hot conditions. You need to take in at least 800 milligram to 1 gram of salt, of sodium. Sorry, not the same thing, so sodium per hour. If you only take drinks and electrolyte drinks and also gels, you will not get enough salt or sodium. So I typically take some high five zeros or some that I put in on top in order to make sure that I get at least 800 milligrams of salt. And last races, this has definitely worked well. So if you race in hot conditions, make sure you check and on a spreadsheet before how much salt you're actually taking in, because if you only take sort of 200-300 milligrams of sodium in per hour, even if that might be enough for the sugar, if it's not enough for the salt, you might run into problems. And then finally the caffeine. I mean, I believe you can take around 500 milli or 50 milligram per hour. So that as well, depending obviously if it's a full Ironman or half, I try to take in something around that. For half, I guess you can take it relatively earlier, and the full Ironman I try to take that more from the second half of the bike. But whether it's in training or in racing, the caffeine has always helped me feel better and getting through the training or through the race much easier. So make sure you have a spreadsheet, you calculate exactly what you're taking, and and have the focus not to deviate from the plan, because typically in the race we always do, because at some point we are thirsty and we don't want to really take in any sugar, or but stick to the plan, and that for me has always given the best results. Maybe last thing, some people, or very often I read or I hear that people have stomach problems, and so the race would have been perfect, but they had stomach problems. I mean, I find typically that it just means that they went too hard, and it's typically on the bike based on what their training was, and if they had gone a little bit easier on the bike, then they would have been able to digest also the different things that they were eating. So it's always a fine balance between how much effort you put in. Obviously, if you put too much intensity, you will also typically not be able to take in that much sugar, etc., because the stomach is shutting down. So but based on those indications, which is again around 80 grams carb per hour, around 800 milligrams of sodium per hour, and then around 50 milligrams of caffeine per hour. Based on those three, for me, that's always worked well, and looking forward to test that also in Puerto Rico next weekend. So thanks guys for listening. Subscribe, or please put in the comments what other subjects you think could be useful for next week, and thanks a lot for listening. Cheers.